Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karabhavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we're making our way through the 4th chapter, and we're now on the, I think Deepa said, the 21st verse. So let's plunge right into it. Will you help us out, please, Deepa?
Sure. Nirashirya tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. Without hope, with the mind and self-control, having abandoned all possessions, doing mere bodily action, he incurs no sin.
So the subject we have under discussion here is who or what is the agent, and how are we to relate to all that? Because part of ego's strategy is it thinks I do, I choose, I act. And then if I have that viewpoint, then there are all sorts of problems that can arise. Did I choose correctly? Oh, how did I get in that mess? I must have made a mistake. And what am I going to do about this decision that's coming up tomorrow? Will I make a mistake? Will I make the wrong choice? And what Krishna's working on in this section is to understand what choice is and where does it come from. In the Western teachings, it's a big thing. Everybody has free choice. You know, I want my liberty. I want my rights. Free choice. But few people ask, why do I choose what I choose? Well, it's because I want it. Well, why do you want that and not this? So yoga never denies the fact that as human beings, we experience the need, the desire to make choices. Of course we do. And we act on those choices to the best wisdom we have. But what's really going on? And Krishna has said in the previous verses that in fact there is no real person there making these choices. What's happening is that we are impelled into action by guna and karma, the qualities of our mind, whether we're tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic, and the force of our past as it interacts with the greater society. You see. And what Krishna's basically saying is, you're going to do what you're going to do. Now, this force of the past is the result of the vasanas that we have created over lifetimes, and many of them are in conflict. Someone once gave me this wonderful image. If you've ever seen a mother dog with a litter of puppies nursing, now the little baby puppies, right after they're born, they're blind, but they have an instinct to get to the mother's milk. And what happens is one puppy will crawl up and start nursing on a teat, and then another puppy will kind of crawl up and push it out of the way and start nursing, and then it will get onto another nipple, and then another puppy pushes it out of the way. So there's all this apparent conflict of these babies, and it's all driven by instinct. And one gets some milk for a while, and then another one gets some milk for a while. But in the end, it's all just driven by instinct. And so, which vasana is going to win out today? One with the most energy from the force of the past. And it's frequently in competition with another vasana. But it's all a very mechanical process. Another metaphor I like to use, if you go hiking up in the mountains and it's early spring and there's snow melt, as the snow melts, water will start flowing down a hillside. So imagine there's a large boulder. The water comes down and it starts to pool behind the boulder. And as the snow melts, the water gets higher and higher. Now, does it choose, I'm eventually going to flow to the right and not the left? Of course not. Which side the water flows is absolutely determined by the laws of gravity and hydrodynamics. The lower level, that's where the water's going to go. So also with our various desires. The proclivity that's the strongest, that's what you're going to do. And it's all perfect. It's all what we need to go through to garner the experience as we work our way toward the infinite. Everybody gets their allotted doses of successes and failures in life. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say that if you're a yogi, you're going to hit all the green lights of life. But you will be able to have serenity in the midst of success and failure, honor and dishonor. I was talking with a student this past week, and 2-3 years ago, he was wrongly accused of doing something frankly unethical and dishonest. And he's an honest fellow. He did not do it. And it ended up in a lawsuit. And eventually it was settled through out of court. It cost him $30,000 in legal fees. And he's so upset because he felt like, well, what's important to me is my honor, my name. They took my honor and my name away from me. It's not the money. And so as a yogi, we would say, well, guna and karma. First of all, be really honest. Did you cut any corners? But more importantly, we don't know where, but maybe you were unethical in a prior life. And that karma's coming back. It's all perfect. What we need to pay attention to is the point of power, which is how do I respond rather than react to negative circumstances in my life. The name of that practice is called titiksha, forbearance. The capacity to endure the vicissitudes of life without the need for redress or revenge. The way to practice titiksha intelligently is this deep understanding of the law of karma. Now, whether it's honor or dishonor, the yogi stands apart from it all. I am the witnessing consciousness. Neither success nor failure touches me. And what happens is perfect. It's beyond our human ideas of good and bad. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Sorry. Yadrichalabhasam tushto द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समसिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते. Content with what comes to him without effort, free from the pairs of opposites and envy, even-minded in success and failure, though acting, he is not bound.
Yes. So again, we earlier had this question. What is action and what is actionlessness? So the answer is simply this. It is the body that acts. Even sitting still is an action. And the self never acts. It is not the agent. It does not choose. It does not decide. It's always the witness. So we have a technical word that's introduced in this chapter here. Dvandva. It's a reduplicated root. Dvi is two. So the pair of twos, the two of the twos. And we normally say heat and cold, which refers to the whole possibility of experience, positive and negative, at the realm of the body. Sukham dukham cha, suffering and pleasure, at the level of the mind. And here he has success and failure, or honor and dishonor sometimes. It's our human evaluation of what we have accomplished. And so and free from envy, was that the word he used? Is that correct, Deepa?
Yeah, pair of opposites and envy.
Yes, meaning my particular course in life is my own. It does me no good to compare myself to another person, especially when I'm comparing their outsides to my insides. They may look very successful on the outside, but you have no idea what they go through on the inside. So we need to stay in our own lane. It's my life. And so the yogi begins to develop this practice of being able to let these events just pass through, not hold on to them. Shankara uses this wonderful metaphor of a wicker basket with water poured into it. It just pours out. Nothing is held. So that's our goal as a practice. If good things happen to us, give the glory to God. And if something terrible happens, it's egg on God's face, not mine. I do nothing. Except I try to do my best. We all do that. We all do that as humans. Don't let anything stick. And certainly don't let the opinions of other people stick. Most of us are more than willing to try to renounce the hurt, the reaction of criticism. Unfortunately, by then it's usually too late, because we've already become attached and identified with praise. That's where we usually get attached. Oh, you're doing so well. Oh, you're such a good person. Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're so handsome or pretty. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now you're stuck. So when, not if, the world says, you screwed up. That was a stupid thing to do. Oh, you've put on 20 pounds, haven't you? Because you're already attached and identified. So we let both the positive and the negative just pass through. Be empty, just let it pass through. Any questions about this?
Jim, I don't have a question for this verse, but the last one where you talked about the attitude of tatiksha, I wondered if I can ask a question about that.
Sure.
I'm curious, you said like not to worry about redress or revenge. Revenge, I understand, but what is the purpose of not worrying about redress? Shouldn't you try to clear things up if there was a mistake?
Well, sure, certainly. If you yourself have made a mistake, do your best to clear it up. But this is more about if somebody has hurt your feelings. For example, if you're in the work situation and somebody is, say, supposed to accomplish a task and they've not done it correctly, then as a manager, your job is to acknowledge that. And you don't sweep it under the rug, but you don't beat them up for it. You don't make it personal. And likewise with stuff with us. If someone says, Jim, okay, real life example. I was talking with a student yesterday, and he said, I have something that's really hard for me to share this because I really love you, Jim, but I feel like you don't really hear me sometimes. You interrupt. It's a bad habit of mine. He's absolutely right. So I said, you're right. I apologize. I'm sorry. Oh, I just didn't want to, it was so hard for me to say that. So I said to him, dude, I'm a yogi. These things do not upset me. You're right. So in that sense, of course, we make correction. But that's different than getting defensive. Can you get the difference, Divya?
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about the earlier example you gave of the other student who wanted to clear his or her name. I think that example, I was thinking, like, isn't it worth spending some time trying to clear your name if you didn't actually do something wrong?
And maybe there's no way to do that. One of the things that it's most difficult to counteract is widespread gossip. So my suggestion to him is continue to act with integrity, with compassion, treat this apparent adversary with respect, return good for evil. Now, if this other person is inappropriately slandering you, chances are he's done it to other people. People will know. People will know. Do you catch the nuance there?
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Let's look at a real live example. So there's been this great talk among the conservatives about stolen election. Stolen election, blah, 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 blah. Now, whether or not this is upsetting President Biden, what I see him doing in public is not getting into the mud. He's staying focused on the particular programs he wishes to accomplish as president. Now, on a policy level, people can agree or disagree. But from the standpoint of, ethics, he's stayed out of the mud pit. He's just not going to get down there and get defensive and well, you've called me a thief. Look what you did. All that kind of business. No, he doesn't go there. So he's demonstrating, at least in public, the point that I'm getting at there. Do you see it?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay. Good question. Who you are speaks much louder than anything you say. And if you continue to act in the world with nobility and with integrity and with humility, understanding that all of us at the level of the equipment are going to make mistakes. We admit our wrongs, do our best to right them. And then in the workplace, don't attack people, be solution oriented. That is one of the most important things we can learn in the world, in the business world. Because as soon as it gets personal, you've lost the capacity to find a solution. Then you get cover your ass kind of stuff going on. But if you just, okay, this is a problem, this didn't work out, we didn't meet this goal, this particular product didn't work, now let's be solution oriented. That I have found most useful. All right, next verse.
We're on verse 23. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavasthita chetasah yajnaya charata karma samagram praviliyata. Of one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, who acts for the sake of sacrifice, all his actions are dissolved.
So what Krishna is implying here is the result, the purpose of practicing karma yoga. So at some point, the mind will of its own accord turn inward into this deep contemplative life. But most of us have had the experience, well, I just didn't get around to meditating this week. And I know we're supposed to give up, attachments to worldly experience and desires, but I'm just not there yet. I want a job and I want money and I want a house and I want a wife or a husband. I like attention. I like wearing nice clothes. And we don't get to a place of renunciation through willpower. What we do is act. Act according to your heart's deepest desires, your inherent proclivities, your swadharma, your vasanas. But how? In the yajna spirit. Now, we covered that in chapter 3. Let's review what it means. So the image is the Vedic sacrifice, but probably we can simplify it. In most Indian homes, not most, in many, you may have had the custom when your mother cooked dinner and you had a mandir in the home and there was a murti in it. For the Westerners, that's a little temple that you have, a little shrine in your home, and there's your God, whatever it is, your family God. So you fix the meal, and then you take the plate and you give it to the God. You put it in front. Many, many Indian homes have that. Then you serve dinner. Well, the idea is you offer the food to the God first. And what we get is prasad. We get literally the remnant of the sacrifice. We always eat God's leftovers, you see. But the idea here is we don't cook food for our own consumption. We do it for the God. Now we've just expanded that idea of the sacrifice into everything. rather than working at the job so I can get what I want, so I can get my needs met, so everybody can look at what I have in my title. No. Focus on being able to serve the presiding principle over human endeavor. So Sheila is with us tonight. She just got a new job. Are you there, Sheila?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Okay, so tell us again what your field of study was in school.
Urban and regional planning.
Yeah, and you've gotten a job doing exactly what you were trained for, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So there must be some deity who's in charge of urban planning and urban renewal. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So what your job is to propitiate that God, meaning look at the principles, work hard to serve this principle and to serve other people, to serve the earth, so that, we don't get choked up with pollution and stuff. Don't worry about the promotions. They're there. Don't worry about the paycheck too much. It will come if you serve that principle. Is that making sense?
Yeah, definitely.
That's the yajna spirit. Swamiji used to thunder, serve the society. Serve something greater than your own ego needs. And we get the prasad, we get the remnant of the sacrifice. And this is the way the Lord has set up the universe. The devas are nourished by sacrifice, and then the devas nourish the world. That doesn't mean superstition, that these deities, oh, I'm starved, nobody did puja this week. No. We're talking about a subtler thing. This is mystic symbolism. So it's the presiding principles over the fields of human endeavor. So we want to live our lives in the yajna spirit. Wake up in the morning, how can I be of service to God? How can I serve your holy people, Lord? How can I serve my chosen field of endeavor? You've all heard me say the slogan that I like. Good morning, God. This is Jim reporting for duty. A friend of mine gave me this wonderful prayer. It was composed by Father Michael Judge. He was the Franciscan chaplain to the New York City Fire Department. He was the first recorded death at 9/11. And it's, Lord, take me where you want me to go. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and keep me out of your way. It's a fabulous prayer. It's all about this yajna spirit. So you're going into a meeting at work. Oh, I hope they like me. I hope I can impress them. I hope I get the attention of the manager. No. Serve. What's the idea I need to communicate? What do these people need to hear? What will serve the goal that we have at the office? So this is what Krishna is saying. And then you stand back and watch. The fruit always belongs to the Lord. Question?
Jim,
Yeah, I have a question, Jim and Susie. Is there neutral God of propitiating God in case you don't really know what you want, and you don't know which one. I mean, I ask God in general, use me, instrument, but when you don't have something clear in mind, is there a
Well,
God?
you and I are both very familiar with 12-step. So in the 11th step, how are we taught to pray?
We only pray to know God's will for us and the power to carry it out.
So that's the prayer. Sometimes you get go here, sometimes you get don't go there, and sometimes you get nothing.
Yeah, that's where I am.
So you can only do your best. And you go for your sense of rightness. Now, as a rule, how do I discern God's will if I'm not getting an answer? My experience over many, many decades in this work, God's will is always for more life, more love, more expression, more mercy, more service. It's never about getting back at someone, manipulating another person, etc. And then what you do is, if you don't know and you're not sure, flip a coin. Because in the end, it was written an eternity ago. You're going to do what you're going to do. And the yogi quits worrying about, am I making the right decision? And sometimes we move into an area and we learn, no, that's not where I'm supposed to be. Let me just give you an example out of my own life. When I went back to school after I left the Chinmaya Mission to get a music degree, I thought I would be a performing artist, and I thought I would probably work in music education. Well, that really didn't work out very much. And then by an unusual set of circumstances, I ended up working for the Catholic Church for 20 years. Never occurred to me. But that's where my prarabdha karma moved me. It was a great job. I'm very grateful for having had it. I never would have thought of it. So one learns to trust the process and not to fear.
Okay, thank you.
So I go back and I'm studying voice and I want to, be a professional singer. Then I had to confront the fact that, Jim, I've come to this too late in my life. And the Lord gave me a good instrument, but not a great one. And I'm not going to be able to sing principal roles in major opera houses. It isn't going to happen, Jim. Okay? Then where do you want me, Lord?
Jim, I have a question. This is
Okay.
Mariema. So just going back to your previous comment of propitiating different gods for different things. Maybe this is more of a comment than a question, but to me that sounded like, like seeing divinity in everything that you do. And I think when we were talking about karma yoga, I think we may have mentioned this in some form. I mean, is that what you mean when you say, kind of looking for the divine in everything that you do, even in...
Absolutely. That's a very good way to look at it. But what the main issue that Krishna is dealing with this idea of agency is the challenge we have making decisions. That's where agency starts to be problematic. When the ego thinks, I choose, I do, then the inevitable result is, and I can screw up. Are you catching the taste of that?
Yes, yes.
And that's what he's dealing with. I think you're right on. He's also saying, see the divine in everything and every action. If you cannot do what you love, learn to love what you're doing, because right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. You've got a problematic boss. Right where the trouble is, that's your guru. What's that problematic boss teaching you?
Thanks, Jim.
Very good question. Anything else on this subject? We'll move on.
Hey, Jim, it's Katie. Good evening.
Hi, Katie.
Hey, on decision making and then connecting it with something you said before in terms of let other people's opinions, thoughts, views just flow right through you. No need to let those be sticky. Then it seems to me they're no wiser or smarter than I. So my own thoughts or views or feelings might also just flow away. And then
Well, what I meant there was don't get caught up in people's personal attacks.
okay.
But if you go to someone who, refresh my memory, what's your field of work?
I work in affordable housing.
Affordable housing. Okay. So do you have colleagues who may know more about a certain area, maybe in mortgaging or getting grants or stuff than you? Of course you can go to them and say, oh, we need to raise $50 million to get this housing project off the ground. Do you have any ideas where we might go? I mean, I'm making this up, but you get the idea. Of course we can seek expert advice. I'm not talking about that. Have I addressed your question?
I think what I'm wondering is in terms of sort of what is the value, if anything, of our own thoughts or opinions in terms of tying it into
In the world, they are of great value. I mean, if you've worked in affordable housing, I assume you've got some expertise, don't you?
Yeah, I guess in terms of sort of how to move next in life. What's our compass? Is it our own thoughts, experience, views?
Follow your passion, follow your bliss.
Right. Okay.
When I was talking with a young man this week, he's teaching at a high school. He's doing some choreography. He's doing this dance class thing, and then he started to talk about making his own music, and you could just watch him just light up. It felt so good. And those are things when I'm working with people, I tune into. That's the voice of God within speaking. It's not the having or the getting, it's in the doing. And it doesn't mean the indulgent part of the mind. Oh, what I love to do is go on cruises. Oh, what I love to do is eat ice cream. I don't mean that. It's something subtler and something deeper. But when you're doing something and it feels very right to be doing it. It's a deep intuitive sense. And for want of a better term, Katie, you've got to be willing to be psychically pregnant. You can feel that, okay, there's some new movement within me to move on to the next stage of my career. And I don't know what it is. It's like a woman who doesn't know the gender of her baby. Is it going to be a boy? Is it going to be a girl? And, you know, she's got to wait. Well, this is, assume you're in a culture where they don't have ultrasound. But the time will come when it's ready to be birthed, and you'll know. You'll know. Trust the process and trust waiting. And here's another very important piece. The end is the means in a different form. I was talking with another person, and they too wanted to be a musician, a professional musician. And they had an administrative job in academia. And they said, well, I just need to make enough money so I can support doing music full time. And I said to this person, the end is the means in a different form. If you spend 5, 10 years as an academic administrator, at the end of the 5 or 10 years, you'll probably be a really good academic administrator, but you won't be a musician. If you want to be a musician, you've got to make music. The end is the means in a different form. So don't postpone your dream. Don't get sidetracked. Is that helpful?
That's awesome. Thank you, Jim. Super clarifying.
And that's classic yoga. The end is the means in a different form. And you've got to look at the absurdity that goes on in our world. For example, fighting for peace is like fornicating for chastity. It is absurd because the end is the means in a different form. Fighting will produce more fighting. Reconciling. Working it out non-violently will move us towards peace. So in all sorts of different ways, this principle, the end is the means in a different form. The pot is the clay in a different form. The ornament is the gold in a different form. My career today is my study and training in a different form. I mean, it makes perfect sense if you look at it, but we lose sight of that frequently in the world, and we use an inappropriate means to get to a goal.
Thanks.
And usually that's done out of fear. I want a safe life, so I'm unwilling to take the risk to do what I love. Sometimes we take the risk and we do what I love and it doesn't work. Or I find when I get there, I don't like it. Well, you've learned something important. And you can check it off and not hold it out there as a romantic fantasy anymore. Divya, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Tell us about your makeup project. Your online, you know, the project you had
That's right.
started.
Yeah, so I started that, a project for helping people find the best makeup for themselves based on their skin tone. It was an app, and I really felt like I was told to do it. Like, that's what my heart said. But in the end, the project didn't take off. I spent like a full year on it. And I really think that was still the right thing to do, even though it didn't go anywhere.
But did you learn something?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think like I learned something, and I learned the biggest thing I've learned is that it's still worth following your passions. Doesn't mean that the passions turn into anything. Just follow your passions, because happiness doesn't come from, the end result.
Yes. And in that traveling and all that stuff, didn't you meet Jack?
Oh my God, yes. Yes. So that's what came out of it. Who knew? I just did it, and I made
You
a
know,
really
you
good
thought it
best
was
friend.
about starting a business, and it was about finding a husband.
Yeah. Yeah, God was probably doing that on purpose. Like, she's not going to go there if I don't tell her to do it for business. So I guess that's the secret I'll use.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? When I ended up working at St. Augustine for 14 years, it all started with someone saying, we need a tenor section leader at Our Lady of Angels in Burlingame. I'd never sung in a Catholic church. And I said, what does it pay? And they said, $50 a service, $50 a rehearsal. I said, I can do that. I needed the money. I was in school. It was so simple. Turned into a whole career. You never know how things will turn out. And the good news is you learned how to really make your face pretty, and you caught a husband.
Yes, because before that, I didn't know how to put on makeup. You're right. Many good things came out of it, Jim. And I made a best friend. So there you go. 3 amazing things.
All right, next verse.
We're on verse 24. Brahmarpanam Brahma Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir Brahma Agno Brahmana Hutam Brahmevatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Brahman is the oblation, Brahman is the clarified butter, etc., constituting the offerings. By Brahman is the oblation poured into the fire of Brahman. Brahman verily shall be reached by him who always sees Brahman in all things, in all actions.
So who was it who was saying, are you talking about seeing God in everything? Was that Katie or was that someone else?
I think it
That was me.
It was
Wait, who's me? Give me the name.
Madhurima.
Oh, okay. So this is exactly what Krishna is saying. So the exoteric understanding is, of course, the Vedic sacrifice. So it's the priest, and he's putting the various objects into the fire, and there's the ghee and the god and the intention and the all of it. Every aspect of the sacrifice is Brahman. So, to find the mystic symbolism, who is doing the doing? It is God. Who in the end is making the choices in and through me? It's God. What is the activity that I'm engaged in? It's divine activity. Who am I serving by this activity? That's God. And when the joy comes, that's actually the mind coming home for a moment. And that is God. So the highest viewpoint. Well, I love the way it's expressed in Chandogya Upanishad, one of my favorite sayings. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam is shop talk. It means all this, and it means the whole phenomenal world. Kalu, verily, is Brahman. All this, every part of it, is divine. So, in the end, the yogi is out of control. She does not know what she's going to do from moment to moment. That doesn't mean she doesn't make plans, but they can change. And the yogi then taps into this deepest part of the mind, which is connected with the mind of God. There's a beautiful prayer in the Western tradition called the Prayer of St. Francis, even though St. Francis didn't write it. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. It goes on like that. The whole idea is this piece of equipment then becomes a tool for the infinite. How do we prepare for it? When we give up our attachment to the outcome. We follow that deep intuition in our hearts. And we've all had moments of that. Have you ever been talking with a friend who may be going through a problem or a crisis, and out of the blue you just get the sense you're supposed to say something, and that's exactly what the person needed to hear? Or there you are cleaning house, you're doing dishes or cooking or something like that, and then all of a sudden you get the intuition, oh, I need to call so-and-so. And you do. And they go, oh, I'm so glad you called. I've just been having a terrible day. Blah, 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 blah. And we're there to love and support people. Or in the workplace, out of nowhere, you get an idea. You know who really used this practice was Einstein. Einstein was a deep mystic. And he would get these intuitive senses of how the universe works. Then he would try to work out the mathematics. But the original inspiration came from the infinite. You all probably know the European composer Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And he was a vulgar man. And he said, I write music the way a sow pisses. If you've ever seen a pig in a pig pen, they just walk around and then their elimination just kind of pours out the back end and they don't really pay too much attention to it. That's how music, it just poured out of him. Just poured out of him. He had a tremendous sense of being a vehicle, a channel. It's one of the most famous verses in Gita. Many people choose to memorize it, either in the Sanskrit or in English. What number is it again, Deepa?
We just did 24, Jim.
Verse 24 in the 4th chapter. Would you read the Sanskrit again for us?
Sure. Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. You want the English?
Sure, read the English.
Brahman is the oblation, Brahman is the clarified butter, etc., constituting the offerings. By Brahman is the oblation poured into the fire of Brahman. Brahman verily shall be reached by him who always sees Brahman in all actions.
Yes. Yes. One of the most famous verses in Gita. All right. It's 7:30. I think we'll stop here for the evening. Do we have any other questions on anything we've covered either tonight, or it doesn't have to be on tonight's subject matter? It can be on anything.
I have a non-trivial, it's a trivial question rather.
All right.
When you say the end is the means in another form, is your advice to start with the means in our sight or the end? Where does one start?
Well, it doesn't matter which one you start with, but if you have the idea that I'm going to work at something that is ancillary or contrary to the end, thinking that's going to get me to the end, you're probably mistaken.
Mm.
Um, and again, the classic case was, well, this is another true story. No, that one doesn't fit. I won't use that one. But the young man who was working as an academic administrator, thinking at some point he's going to make enough money to then support his music. That doesn't mean, as artists, some of us may need day jobs for a while, but focus your attention on what it is that you want to accomplish. If you want to be a business person, put your time and attention into learning about and what business is. You're not going to be a good business person by studying cooking. You're going to be a cook if you study cooking. But the other piece of this, Deepa, is if you really work at what you love, the end will take care of itself. Now, something totally non-yogic, not spiritual. There's a wonderful essay by the philosopher Karl Marx, his essay on alienated labor. For me, it was life-changing as a teenager. My father was a Republican, and after reading this, I became a Marxist. Swamiji was a Marxist, by the way, in his youth. I don't know if people knew that. But Marx's essay on alienated labor talks about how in an unfettered capitalist system, the harder the work, the poorer you get. And that what happens is if you're working for the money, it's something from which you're alienated. And what you tend to do is take the money and just satisfy your animal needs. You need to vacate, go on a vacation, because your life is so troublesome and toilsome. But the thing is, after having read that essay and then later having studied Gita, I committed myself. I will never work at a job I don't love. And I never have. I did when I was a young teenager. I had soul-crushing jobs. I worked on an assembly line. You can fall asleep standing up on an assembly line. If it's that repetitive and boring, 8 hours a day. Horrible, horrible way to live. Some people may like it. For me, it was very alienating. But you don't have to put up with something from which you feel disaffected and alienated. We're not built that way. The other thing is, someone's a secretary and they hate being a secretary, but they think it's the only thing they can do. What they really want to do is be a chef. Well, if they're working at being a secretary, there may be somebody else who really wants to be a secretary, but they can't because you're in their position in life. And then someplace, someone needs a chef and there's no worker to be there. So all of the economy gets out of balance. God's intelligent. There's a place in this universe for you. And the same intelligence that put your heart's deepest desires in you has created the place in the universe for you to express that. That's how we're meant to live. And when we don't go there and do that, we get false production, false consumption, and people alienated from their work, who then get involved in dishonesty and greed and exploitation, and the society becomes damaged because of this fundamental alienation in work. Was that useful at all, Deepa?
Always. Thank you.
And you know, it's weird. When I had my church job, in between masses on Sunday, I had this marvelous accompanist. We paid her really good money, $90 an hour, to come play mass. And in between the two masses, I'd go back into the music office and I'd see her filing music in the file cabinets. And I'd say, Irene, we don't pay you to do this. You don't need to do this. And she says, oh, I don't mind. I find filing relaxing. That was Martian to me. I don't like filing. She likes filing. There really are people who like to do stuff that you and I don't like to do. And they can shift through a life. I mean, I don't make music anymore. Appreciate music, but I don't make it anymore. Now I'm teaching Vedanta. That's what the Lord has me doing. You never know. You never know. It's a wonderful journey. And for God's sake, have fun. You know, enjoy this world.
Oh, Tim, you're so lovely.
No, it shouldn't be drudgery. Have fun. Play is the highest form of work, and work is the highest form of play. That's how we're built. I was watching on YouTube baby elephants. I've got this thing on for baby elephants. And there was this one little tiny baby elephant, and it was practicing charging at some of the stuff in the reserve where it is. There was this big bucket, you know, and it was being this big, you know, charging bull elephant, and its ears were big, and it was charging it and having so much fun. It was playing, practicing being a grown-up bull elephant. This is the whole world is, we're built this way. We're built this way. You ever watched a dog when you throw a stick or a ball doing its retrieval thing? This idea of chasing moving things out in the wild. That's how dogs catch prey. For them, it's fun. All right. Anything else? We can sit.